Good morning, and welcome to the War Room here on the mothership. I am, of course, your General and Chief, Lax Zivrak. And if any of y'all are any real Alaskans or any real natives out there, you'll know what this hat is. And you'll know. It's heavy shit, Jack. It's heavy shit. Welcome again. I'm working off Brett's new camera, which is here, but yet the laptop is right here. And every once in a while, for whatever reason, I have to check to make sure. I don't know. I almost stopped the video right then. Welcome to the War Room, right here on the mothership. And thank you for joining us on another story time with Lack. Yes, I know y'all wanted it. My friend Dylan knows that actually for the last few years I've been trying to write a book, and it's very difficult. Like, I give a lot of respect. You know when Truman Capote and what's that? Not Shelby Foote, but the guy who looks like Shelby Foote. Jesus. He's one of my favorites now, and my mom's favorite, and now I can't think of his name. But anyway, you know, when they say that those guys, lock themselves in a hotel room with a bunch of fucking whiskey, motherfucker, I understand, everybody thinks that's a joke, and, I get that. I should have been writing my book the whole time I was in the wilderness, but I was fucking busy fucking being in the wilderness, you know? These cell phones, I thought it probably would have been really fucking cool if I would have fucking vlogged all the shit I did, but I mean, motherfucker, I didn't even have a phone. I mean, I owned a phone, but, it wasn't on. You couldn't walk around doing, what we do, you know? That's one of the things about some of those shows that I don't watch any of those shows, because A, they make me mad, and B, well, they either make me mad or they make me homesick, so I don't watch them. But those, Alaska shows or survival shows, they either make me upset or they make me homesick, so I don't watch them. But you know what I mean? You can't be 190 miles from somewhere for fucking a month and your fucking cell phone battery still works. Unless you got some shit going on that you're not showing on the camera, which is cool, but if it's cool and it's actually real, then show it on the camera. You know, when I worked for Bureau of Land Management, the first time I worked there was years ago, and we had this cool, I'll find it, but we had a charger for our radios. You know, and it was 9 or 12 AA batteries in this big compartment, and it had a cigarette lighter thing attached to it, you know. But it was 12 AA batteries would charge your radio, you know. And it didn't last that long. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself on, I don't even know. We're 3 minutes in. This is a story time with Lack. And this story happened to me. I'd say I was probably 23, I guess. I'm not real sure, but in that area. So, in the village where I stayed, you know, which is about 20 miles from the wilderness where I lived with my granddad. But anyway, so after my granddad died, I stayed in the woods by myself, and I eventually came, and I would come to the village, you know, and I knew people there and shit, but I eventually came to the village and stayed, and shacked up with this woman, and started living there. But so, anyway, this story has to do with when I lived there, okay, and I shacked up with this woman in a place in the village called Hudrow, and then I had a really good buddy. I think I've said his name before, but his name's Tony. We call him Higgins because he reads the books. And Tony is a Vietnam. I hope he's still alive. I haven't heard from him or talked to him in actually a number of years, but he was my real good. After my brother Puff, who I tell y'all about, after my brother Puff died, and before my brother Henry from the bar fight story was actually released out of fucking prison. I had my number one hunting partner and my number one pahu was a fella named Tony. And he was a Vietnam veteran. He was in the 104th Airborne. Pretty serious, awesome dude. And one of the goofiest, funniest motherfuckers you ever want to meet. But, like, if you were in the wilderness and you wanted to learn something and shit was fucked up, as long as Tony got pretty old, and Tony was a pretty bad drunk his whole life, but until he got really old, he could handle it. And then when he got older, it was just basically like, he wasn't worth, you couldn't have him anymore. You know what I mean? He was a detriment on the trail. And he knew that, and it made him sad, and it made everybody sad, because he was a mighty fucking hunter, you know? He was a mighty brave, old fucking Tony. He was. So, anyway, Tony lived up, and this is still in the village, but Tony lived in a part of the village called the Loop, and in between the Loop and Hud Row was the jungle. Because we have a lot of cute names for everything. So anyway, Tony Jensen, he was a good guy. But up at the Loop, every couple of years there was this big nasty black bear that would come to the Loop. The Loop was pretty much like on the far edge of the village. Like once you left the Loop, you were in the woods. You know what I mean? Like you'd cross the railroad tracks and then it was over. You ain't gonna run into any more fucking people living, you know. You might run into some camps or something, and depending on what time of the year, you might go far enough to find a person hunting or doing whatever they're doing. But Tony Jensen lived on the edge of society, you know, for real, for everybody, even where you live. You know, like your edge of society is fucking Tony's house. But anyway, so Tony had a real cool, real nice dog named Maverick, and it was a real runty, small, midgety, beautiful dog. It was a husky. But anyway, so this nasty bear would come to the Loop, and it was probably every couple of years, you know. It didn't come every year, but it would be at fall time, right before the snow, before it would get shitty. But this fucking pretty big old black bear would show up, and it would like fucking eat people's dogs' food, and it would get in fucking people's garbage, and if you had a smokehouse, it would, you know, it would come around and it would fucking, and a lot of people lived up at the Loop. Like Tony was the youngest, spryest dude who lived up there, and he was a fucking tore down, fucked up Vietnam veteran, and you know, and he was like the youngest, spryest fucking warrior in his little community up there, you know. But so that fucking black bear, and even on the other side of the village, we would all know when that bear would show up because they had a few dogs up there, and just like my dog and everybody's dog, you know the difference. When a dog's barking at another dog, and a dog's barking at some drunk getting too close to their house, and when a dog's barking at a bear in Alaska, fucking you know it, motherfucker. And all the dogs are fucking saying like, holy shit, somebody come, holy fuck. So like even fucking whatever, half a mile away, you'd hear those dogs sound off, and you'd be like, man, that fucking bear must be back. I hope Tony gets him. Well, so I don't know if Tony was ever real serious about killing the bear. I don't know what the deal was, but most people, I guess, left this bear alone. You know, I mean, it's not my bear. I don't have the whole long life lessons of this bear. Well, so one time that fucking bear killed Tony's dog. It was like chained up, and Tony got drunk and passed out, and the dog was out there all night. Which it's fine, but it got killed and ate by this fucking bear. So now Tony's fucking pissed, and Tony's like, I'm gonna kill this fucking bear, but I don't know if I can. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. He's old or some shit. So he comes and he says, why don't you need to kill this bear? I said, all right, we're gonna kill this bear. Now here's where I was fucking crazy. Now look. And Tony tried to talk me out of this, but I said, Tony, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it my way. You know, you're just an old man now. I'm in charge. So, the bear came into this little, for lack of a better term, neighborhood on the same trail. And right before Tony's house, like most houses there are built on, what do they call them? Pads, gravel pads, you know. But so... And then the road is a gravel pad. Anyway, so most neighborhoods are like a little elevated against the swamp, right? Like the wilderness is kind of like this. And then when you go to town, they just bring massive amounts of gravel from, since the beginning of time. They're just like, oh, we better put more dirt here. So this trail here's Tony's house, and this bear has been coming out of the woods. He's been coming from the railroad tracks. And when he comes up into the neighborhood, he comes up behind Tony's house. And Tony's house is basically on a little knoll, and there's a drop-off, and then this trail. And this drop-off has got a big rut at the bottom of it, right? Because like in the fall time and shit, people ride their four-wheelers and shit over to Tony's house on this trail, and everybody spins out trying to make it up this hill. So there's like this big gully. There's like a trail and a gully, and then the hill, if that makes sense, right? At the top of the hill is a big fucking willow tree, big bushy red willow tree. And then just kind of next to that tree and a little bit is Tony's fucking house. So we get some old fucking dry fish and we pour it out in that fucking trail, okay? I'm looking at sorry, I keep looking at I'm not used to looking at this camera yet, you guys. I'm sorry about that. I've been recording off the laptop and looking at it, but so now I have to look at that. Maybe I should close that. I don't know. So, a long time before this, I traded, Tony had a boat, and I traded him a rifle for this boat. And the rifle I traded him was a Marlin 45-70, and it was what they called the Cowboy. It had the long octagon barrel, and it held 9 rounds. And I told Tony, I said, go get that rifle. I could never shoot it real good. It's the only gun I ever owned I couldn't shoot real good, and fucking Tony fucking shoot a goddamn fly in the butthole with it. And so I found something of his I wanted, like that boat, and I said, I'll trade you. You know? But, so check this out. This is how crazy I was back in those days. I had this fucking leather armor that somebody had made for me. Real thick fucking leather fucking armor. And I had a fucking spear, and it was a cold steel spear. It's called the boar spear. So I put on my leather armor. I had donned my Ruger Super Red Hawk 454 Casull with the snub-nosed 2-inch barrel. I have it on a cross draw, like a cross draw setup, riveted to this fucking leather armor, and I have my spear. And I tell Tony, I say, okay, motherfucker, you go sit under that fucking red willow tree with your rifle, and I'm going to get down at the bottom of this hill in this fucking mud hole of a gully, and when that fucking bear comes tonight, I'm going to fucking get him. And Tony's like, I don't know, man, that sounds pretty crazy, you know? And which is funny, because Tony's nobody else would have even nobody else would have even done this with me. Everybody else would have been like, fuck you, lack. You know, and then the people and then other people would have been like really concerned and been like, oh my God, you're not doing this. But Tony was like, fuck, man, that's pretty nuts. You really want to do that? And I was like, yeah, Tone, let's do it. And he's like, okay. Because fucking, he was one, I mean, there's some crazy motherfuckers up there, but there's some motherfuckers that are beyond, like, even the crazy fucks take a look at a couple of my friends and go, holy shit, we better get the fuck out of here, right? So anyway, so the first, like, 2 nights, nothing happens. I literally lay out there in the mud, all night long, till daylight, nothing happens. So finally, like, the 3rd night, we're out there. I think this is like 3 nights after this. Yeah, this is 3 nights after that bear killed that dog, you know. And like, he's got to come back, you know. If this bear wants to eat, for whatever reason, it's coming back. So finally, the 3rd night, I'm laying on my stomach in a I don't know what you call that position. Oh, camera's over here. But kind of like the army man crawl, where one leg is up and one leg is kind of straight. I'm like that, kind of. Why, I don't know. It just felt comfortable. I've never really done this. I'm just making all this up, right? So I get down in that hole, and I got this 8-foot spear by Cold Steel. I'm sure they still sell it. Look it up. You can see exactly what I had. And I had this leather armor on, and I had this 454 Casull in a holster, okay? And I told Tony, he said, well, what's going to happen? You know, I told him, I said, when that fucking bear gets close enough, I'm going to stick it. And I said, do not fucking shoot until I start screaming, shoot. That's what I told him. because I said, this is going to be mine, you know. And I had my 454. I thought, worst case scenario, I have to fucking... Worst case scenario, the fucking bear kills me, I guess. But whatever, you know. I was fucking 22. I didn't give a fuck about that. And did not think that was going to happen at all. So... So I tell him, this is the plan. Don't shoot until I fucking say, or I'm screaming, or whatever. But, because I'm drawing first blood, Tone. This is mine now. So, hold on. So I'm laying down there like I've been fucking laying there for like fucking 3 goddamn nights, right? And Tone is up there behind me, I don't know, 45 feet. 45. I was going to say 20 yards, but I don't know if that's an actual. I'd have to like think of the math and think about it. But off the top of my head, I'm going to say 40 feet behind me on a hill like this. Because the trail, like we said, the trail comes and then there's like a fucking rut and then it comes up this hill and up. Well, Tony's basically at the top of this fucking hill under this tree. You can't see him in the dark. I don't think a bear can fucking see him. I don't think anybody can see him. So I'm at the bottom of this thing and I got this thing. And it's another night, and I'm literally sitting there thinking, like, this is not going to work. You know what I mean? Just because, like, that motherfucker probably smells us or something. This is not going to work. And just like many times before, for different reasons, but I got this fucking... You know what I'm saying? Like, even now, just trying to explain to you, like, I got... You know what I mean? My fucking back of my neck is tingling. But all of a sudden, something on the fucking earth changed. Inside me, I don't think it was the earth, but something fucking changed. And the night that was really kind of black and gray looking to me, all of a sudden turned, everything was like blue. Everything was like different shades of blue. Like light blue, and I could like all of a sudden I could really fucking see more. And I knew that motherfucker was coming. I knew it was coming. Let me turn this off. It was like in the blink of an eye, the whole world fucking changed. It looked different. It smelled different. Everything felt different. You know? And I don't know. And I knew it was on, you know? Excuse me. So I'm laying there. Now, at the end of my spear, there's like a root in this rut that I found way early in the daylight, like days ago. But there's like a knobby root, and I got the back of my spear in that, you know. And so the plan is when it comes close enough, you know. Did y'all ever see what was the name of that movie? Braveheart, my bad, Braveheart. You remember when, at the end, when fucking he being Mel Gibson, had that big plan with the big sticks with the horses, and at the last second they picked up the sticks and the horses ran into it and all that? Okay, that's traditionally how, at least the people who raised me, my natives, I'm sure other people do it, but that's traditionally how you hunt bears, is with that. And what they would do is want you to get the bear to actually try to charge you, like those horses in that movie. And the trick was to keep the spear down as long as possible, because if the bear saw you pick up the spear, it wouldn't come right at you. It would, you know what I mean? But my grandfather and his father and all of them, like, they were like real bear hunters back in the day. Like, they told me stories of like real bear hunters with spears. And I have a couple of the bear stories that I'll tell you later, but this was like... So, obviously the bear didn't fucking kill me, because I'm talking to you. So I'm laying in that hole, and the fucking earth changes before my eyes, and I get this feeling, and it doesn't seem like very long later, all of a sudden, I see him. And he's fucking coming. He's not coming hard, but he's coming, and I can see him. And like the world changed. That's what was so weird. If the world hadn't changed, I don't know if I could have seen him. Where am I looking? And all of a sudden I saw him. And he was pretty big, and he was fucking old. And you could just tell You could just tell by the way he fucking was kind of walking. And man, I don't know how I didn't fucking like squeak. You know what I mean? Like in a cartoon, you know? So I fucking had that motherfucker. And I just am fucking basically scared to death by now. And I remember him, and like it took forever, ever, and all of a sudden that my spear's 8 feet long, and I have it just not that much like behind me, right? So the tip of it is right there, and I know where the tip is, and I'm watching this motherfucker, and I'm thinking, oh, I hope Tony's fucking not sleeping or something, you know, and. The motherfucker gets right there. I can fucking see him. I can fucking see him. Plain as day. I can see his fucking nose going. And that motherfucker takes a step. And I know right then, I say, man, one more step and this is it. It's on. One more step. And that fucking bear was just kind of like, he was walking, but he was getting slower. And he was getting slower. And that motherfucker got to that point where I knew, and I told myself, one more step and I'm taking him. And that fucker got to that step, and he went. And he fucking stopped. And I swear to God, that motherfucker was looking right. I mean, I was like this, you know, but I swear to God, that motherfucker was looking right at me. And like, he was like, I couldn't do anything. My fucking spear is fucking whatever it is, this far away from him. Over here. My spear's fucking this far away from him. My gun is, like, I can't do anything except lay perfectly fucking still. And I don't even know what the fuck I thought. But that motherfucker, he stopped, and I fucking saw him. And I saw his fucking face. And then all of a sudden, he went. And that motherfucker turned around and fucking left the country. And the last time I ever fucking talked to Tony or any of my friends that actually lived in that area, I shit you not, I'm almost 40 now. Like, that bear must have died that year or something because it didn't get enough food or whatever, but the bear never returned back to that village. What do you think of that? I know it's kind of an anticlimactic story. Like, I didn't fight him. I didn't even, you know. But there was that fucking, we looked each other dead in the fucking eyeballs. And he turned around and he left. What do you think of that? And my buddy Tony, Higgins is not his last name. I'm not trying to dox him, but Tony, if you're still alive or you're still out there, or if any of my friends in Alaska fucking are watching this, I know you know who I mean by Tony, and I know who I mean when I say Higgins, and like, y'all go ask that motherfucker about that story. He'll tell you. Ask him about that fucking story. He was there. He fucking saw it. That armor that I wore, I traded that to a friend of mine named Milo years later for a 30-30 rifle. I had that armor hanging up. I never really used it after that for anything. But I hung that armor up at my camp, and it just sat there for like a few years. And my buddy Milo, who's a beautiful artist, came by and said, "What are you doing with that?" And I said, "I'll trade it to you for something, you know." And I got a 30-30 rifle out of it. You know, which I still have in there somewhere. I'll show you all some pictures of some of my friends. But yeah, how you like that for story time? Unsuccessful hunt. I have a lot of stories about me fucking like killing animals, and I don't know if anybody wants to hear that, to be honest with you, you know? So when I say hunting stories, like the other day I asked Dylan, you want a hunting story or a bar fight story? And he said hunting story, and I started thinking, and I was like, well, you know, I really don't want to talk about all these killing fucking animals. I mean, I didn't murder them. I didn't kill them for no reason, you know, You know, a real good hunting story is, oh, I went out to the place where I knew I was supposed to be, and then this thing that I knew was coming came, and then I killed it, and I prayed, and my family didn't die from starvation for another year. Like, that's a fucking good hunting story. I mean, I'm not saying it's good, like, entertaining, but I'm saying that's what a good hunting story is, right? So, anyway, that's one of the crazy fucking things I did as a fucking 20-year-old who didn't give a fuck and who was raised by fucking crazy motherfuckers in Alaska. I was gonna fucking spear that bear. I was gonna fight that motherfucker to the death. You know, and losing had never crossed my mind. Not one bit. But when that motherfucker got close enough where it was sink or swim, I guess he fucking thought about it, didn't he? I don't know. My dad always told me, he said, son, you reach in that pocket and pull out them lucky stars. He said, one day ain't gonna be no lucky star there to fucking reach for. And he's probably right. So, old Lack probably ain't gonna fucking poke the bear too much longer. He's getting old. But yeah, we used to do all kinds of crazy shit like that. When my granddad was still alive, I'm looking at the wrong thing again. When my granddad was still alive, we all did crazy shit like that. We all did crazy shit like that. But after he died and all of us fucking grew up and a lot of us died, actually, there might be one guy left out there who was actually raised by my granddad, you know. I had a lot of friends. My buddy Clifford, he's long been dead. But there might be one fella still left out there who was actually raised by my granddad, like me and Clifford and a few other fortunate, my brother Puff, a few other fortunate people, you know, but there might be one, maybe two, maybe two, but one of them is kind of like, I don't know if he would really count, but since there's nobody left, you know, you want to induct him into the group so you don't feel alone, you know, you're like, oh, you knew him, you want to be my buddy too? Shit like that. But anyway, hey, this has been a story time with Lack Sivrak. I know you motherfuckers are probably thinking, whatever, but that's a true fucking thing that fucking happened to me, Lack Sivrak, in Alaska, when I was about 20, maybe 23 years old. My buddy Tony Higgins, because he reads the books. Tony, I almost said his last name. Tony was in the 104th Airborne, and on some mission he fucked his shit up, his leg or his hip or something, and he couldn't be that anymore. So they taught him how to pack parachutes or something to do with packing. And he would, after he fucked his shit up and he couldn't go out anymore and he helped train and people or whatever he did, they would come to him and they'd say, hey man, I need a real good parachute. And Tony would fucking be like, oh yeah man, here's a special parachute, man. It's specially packed just for you. It's so special we call it the Maxwell House parachute. And the guy would say, Maxwell House parachute? I'm looking in the wrong place. Maxwell House parachute? What does that fucking mean? And Tony would tell him, good to the last drop, baby. Yeah, my friend Tony was fucking... I'll tell you some other Tony stories one day, because that motherfucker is crazy. And fucking... We did a couple crazy fucking things like that. Me and old Higgins. Higgy Diggy. The name Higgins comes from, I think, Magnum P.I. Josh, you might be able to... I didn't watch Magnum P.I. But apparently Higgins is a character in Magnum P.I. and he reads the books. That's all I ever knew about why they called him Higgins. I called him Higgy Diggy. Fuck, I called him Tony a lot, too. Tone. Anyway, this has been General Lack Sivrak telling you a fucking story time. You think that was a fucking crazy fucking true story? I have other ones that are way fucking crazier than that. I thought I'd just start you motherfuckers off easy. Little dipping the toe in the water. Hey, can you see the Toklat? I'm looking at... Look how nice the Toklat mercenary group looks up here. Especially this guy. This is my guy right there. Hey, this has been General Lack Sivrak. I'm going to sign out. I'm looking at the timer. I'm signing off at 29 minutes and 30 seconds. I appreciate everybody out there. I hope you enjoyed this story time with Lack. We'll try to do a story time. I have to be in the right mindset, and I have to be motivated. And sometimes there's stories I feel like I should tell that sometimes I don't feel like telling. You know, because they make me not feel whatever they. Sometimes the emotion in which they conjure up, I'm not ready for. Is that honest enough? Is that honest and no bullshit enough? If it's one thing I try to do in my life, and a lot of people say that I'm mean and everything, but like, I'm just no bullshit, you guys. I'm just no bullshit. I do like to kid around and all that kind of stuff, and sometimes when people kid with me, I don't realize they're kidding. You know, so I don't know. I don't know what to say. But anyway, it's been 30 minutes. This has been a story time with Lack. I hope you like it. I hope you appreciate it. Come back again soon, and we'll have another one. This has been me, the war chief, the general, Lack Sivrak, the one and only, the original Alaskan assassin, the bear hunter, the one. I fucking, think of anybody you know that you think is a badass. I taught them everything they know, but I didn't teach them everything I know. This has been General Lack Sivrak from the war room on the mothership, fucking wearing his fucking Chief Athabascan Indian hat, saying, let's go hunting sometime. Let me know. Have a good one. Lack Sivrak, out.